Hello everybody, this is SodorFan2K10 here, welcoming you to a brand new wooden railway layout video. The first one since about April 2017, so it's been a while, it's been a long time coming. A few things before we start on this layout tour. If you missed any of my recent announcements on Twitter or the YouTube community page, I've decided to cut Season 3 early because I haven't been happy with how I'm filming my series. And one of the big changes that I want to make is switching from filming on layouts to filming on sets. It'll just be, I've just preferred a lot of my work using sets than layouts, and to be honest, they're a little bit easier to work with. So I've made that decision, but before I committed to it, I wanted to build one more layout, at least one more layout. I may build another one, but another layout just for fun. And so that's exactly what I've done. So how about we stop looking at Thomas and Bertie here, we get up and we take a little bit of a look around. So here is the new layout, and there are a few things to point out before, as we're doing a little overview here. And while I'm talking about that, let me work my way over to the corner so we can get a good old overview of it. So here we go. That is the entirety of the layout. It's a little bit bigger than my previous layout. It stretches out just a little bit further, and it features a lot of new things. And what I want to point out is there are three things I want to note about this layout. The first thing is, since I'm not filming on this layout, I've basically thrown out my self-imposed rulebook when it comes to layouts. Usually because I'm thinking about filming, I tend to build things certain ways. I try to use certain techniques. I try to stay away from certain things. For instance, when it comes to designing certain areas like Tidmouth sheds over there, I don't like to build like a bridge next to it, or I like to have it built a certain way. Same thing with where I place certain locations, but because I'm not filming, I decided to do away with that and just make this more of a freelance layout. Second thing, there are lots of new items to see on this layout. Lots of new engines, rolling stock, and even destinations. So I'll be sure to point out all of those. And the third thing to note, you may notice as we're looking around, with the exception of just one area, I'm using only wooden railway items on this layout. Usually I decorate my layouts with Lego and model railway buildings and cargo and such, and scenery. I've decided to do away with that mainly because, I'm going to be taking up this layout not too long after I film this video, and I didn't want to have to pick up all that stuff after putting it down. So, and I thought it'd be a cool challenge to just use only wooden railway items as well. So, how about we get into it? Let's start off right where we started the video. So here we have Thomas, Annie and Clarabelle and Bertie at the Brio Wellsworth station. First time that's appearing on the layout. Thomas is right in front of a T-switch, and this takes us right into Tidmouth sheds. So, here we go. There's a nice aerial view of Tidmouth sheds. This is the first part I laid down of the layout, and straight away I knew I wanted this layout to be a little bit more complex of ones I've built as of late. And I always think that this is the best way to start, which is having the turntable facing this way. Usually I have the sheds placed on this side of the turntable, so attached directly to it, and then on this point I have another shed, so I can make it a 6-berth shed. And then the other points all just go to like a 5-way switch, or just connect in other ways. So the turntable's never been, I don't usually like to have the turntable as a main line, but for this layout, since I'm going a little bit more complex, I decided to do it. And it basically turns the turntable into like a 6-way crossing. So we have a line that comes down this way, a line that comes down here, and that goes across. At the sheds, we have Connor, Gina, Vinny, Ashima, and Caitlin. And yeah, Connor, Vinny, and Caitlin look a little bit weird just because they don't quite fit in that Brio shed. And across over here, we've got Gator, Stephanie, and Frankie and Hurricane. So all the visited engines have invaded Tidmouth sheds. So the line directly across the sheds leads to that T-switch I mentioned, and we've got 6 other ways to go. But we're going to start off going this way in the northeast direction, I guess we can call it. We go under this little road bridge, we go through a crossing, and we arrive at Sydney. So here's a new engine, pull in 2 oil tankers. and his line runs parallel with Paxton. We'll get to his track later, but they both run under the Knapford covered bridge, which is another new item. And aptly, these two tracks lead around the corner and into Knapford station itself. Now, this is the only layout, the only part of the layout that uses non-wooden railway items. And if you haven't seen this before, it did appear on my previous layout, but only after I rebuilt it, so it didn't see much use. So I'll give you a quick overview. The platforms and the buildings back there are both from Hornby. This structure is built out of Lego. It's a custom built Lego structure by me. The roofs are from a Tomy Knapford station, so I managed to find just the roofs off of eBay, and they are held up by a custom wooden structure that I put together. So that's how that all works. It's a custom framework. And at the station at the moment, we've got Gordon with his express, Edward pulling the old coaches, James and some red coaches, and Henry has his log trucks, the Brio ones. So I really wanted to have the this be a 6-lane Knapford station, but the roofs of the station aren't quite wide enough. They're a little bit too narrow to make it. But it doesn't matter. It's a little bit more manageable having just 4 tracks, and also it's kind of my own custom version of a wooden railway Knapford station. I also forgot to mention we've got the Fat Controller and Lady Hat. The Fat Controller's car is there, and on the other side we have some more cars. So how this all works, if we go back over here to where Sydney and Paxton were, we have a little bit of a junction. It comes around a corner and then the lines split off, but going straight we come to a pair of V switches which bring it out to 4 tracks. They come back to 2 each to another junction, and all these areas lead us into the yard. So it's a little bit more simple, a little bit less complex than the previous yard I built, but it's more so based on the CGI appearance. We've got Oliver with some trucks and Toad. There's Stafford shunted some trucks, Philip shunted some oil tankers, Duck is just leaving with his own coaches, and over here we have a shed with Dustin and a siding with Harvey and the breakdown train. And over on this end we've got another little siding area. There's Nelson probably picking up some cargo. We've got the Chinese Dragon, the jet engine, Rocky, the works engine repair shed. There's Winston taking a break since the Fat Controller's at the station. There's a hand car which is new, shunted some cargo cars. And we've got another siding with some coaches and old slow coach tucked away at the back. And the only reason these 2 sidings with the coaches and the breakdown train exist is because I had these 3-way switches spare and I needed the switches I already had in there for another area. So all these tracks come around the corner, there's a signal box, and to this junction area. So we got a few ways to go. We're going to follow Gordon and Edward's line because they come around and they can only go up through the tunnel. I wanted their line to cross and go everywhere else, but I couldn't quite make it work, so we'll follow their track. It goes through the Brio Henry's tunnel. There are some trees. These are plastic trees, but they are from a wooden railway set. They're from a company called Kitcraft, and there's a few other items from them on this layout as well. But we go up, we go on to part of the Brio Sydney Bridge, which is new. We go around over the lift bridge. There's Charlie pulling some coaches, and it goes over this nice little sort of tri-section area, which is kind of cool. We have 2 of these Brio double tunnels. The one on the right is the one I already had. The one on the left is a new one. And we go down through this tunnel, and I want to talk about this really quick because this is a cool idea. I saw this on a picture on Reddit, of all places, of somebody putting this Brio tunnel beneath this sky bridge, and I don't know why I never thought of it before, but it fits perfectly, almost as if it was designed for it. It looks perfect. So we've got the 2 tracks that go through the tunnel, and the openings of the sky bridge also have tracks running through them. We'll continue on Charlie's line for just a moment. We go across the crossing, and it goes up to another new item. This is the mountain tunnel. This is one of the several Tom's Wooden Railway items that I was desperate to get. It's high priority. because it really is a cool destination. It's the traction rail version. I prefer the artwork of the click-to-clack version, but I do prefer traction rail to click-to-clack personally. I may be a bit blasphemous, but that's just me. But the line goes up through the middle portion. It goes over to this mountain, which I've used before, but it's a little bit tricky to actually have engines go up and around it, just because of those tight turns. We got some trees, and we got a ram at the top. But we go up and around, down again. There's Murdoch pulling a long goods train over a blue bridge, and then it comes to a Brio girder bridge. Through the Brio stacking rises down through this end of the sky bridge, around the corner, and we arrive at another station. So I usually use this station as Elsbridge, so I guess we can call it that again. There's Stephen, and he's very popular, so he's got lots of coaches to carry all of his passengers, and his line goes under a bridge, through a tunnel, and around to Brendam docks, but we'll get there a little bit later. Let's head back to Knapford, and now let's see where James and Henry can go. So they actually have a few different options. They can go up the way we just went. They can come to this K-switch. If they turn right, they come down to the Sodor railway repair, and there's Ned. He and another character, the only two characters that aren't Wooden Railway, but I thought they're Thomas characters, so I can allow it. But this line leads us back to where Thomas was at Wellsworth. Going straight to the K-switch brings us, there's some flexi tracks, whatever they're called. I had to use them because this was a little bit of a tricky area to fit in. But here we have the coal station, which is another item I really wanted. This is my personal favourite wooden railway destination, and it's really cool. It's very big, it's very high quality, I love it. You'll notice that we got two cranes. Not long after I got this destination, I found a second crane, and it looks really cool. It looks perfect. I really like how it looks, especially with having two tracks lead under them. So the line splits in two. We've got some coal trucks here. There's Ryan shunting Hector, who's a new character. There's Nia, the Thomas Wood Nia, but the only Thomas Wood item I'm willing to pick up. There, she is shunting some coal trucks. And on the other side, by the other crane, we have Fred, and who I used to call Phil. So Fred and Phil, the coal trucks. Elizabeth is also there, some more coal. And over in this little siding is Lady, buy some buffers. Make it that as you will. But these two tracks head over here. They both kind of end up in the same place, but we'll take this this upper line for just a moment. So this passes up to Donald up the back there. His line continues on, splits, going straight, leads us to Molly. Let's get a little bit closer. Molly at this Brio speak and record station, whatever it's called, with some Brio passengers on the water tower. It leads up to the back of the layout. There's Spencer and his coach. Past a T-switch, past another T-switch. There's Neville pulling the zoo cars and a Brio Zebra car, whatever it's called, under the over-the-track signals. And that leads us into Brendam docks, as we did before with Stephen's line from the station. In fact, coming... Actually, that's not right. I was going to say coming down from the T-switch leads us there, but it doesn't. Coming down from the T-switch leads us to Emily at the other side of the station. And in fact, if I can get to it, there's Emily and Bulgy, and her line comes down past this crossing, and I love putting this crossing in, having in these Y switches and a crossing. I just think it's a really cool idea, especially since it comes just out of these tunnels. So, following on from that, Emily's line comes through the left tunnel, and this brings us back to Thomas's line. So, yeah, there are two tracks that lead us back to Wellsworth. Where do we go next? Following, let's go back to the coal station really quick. So the lower line leads us under the bridge as well to a little junction. We have Ari and Bert with some scrap cars. They probably just picked up some scrap that's from the works. And at the works we have all the narrow gauge engines, and there are some new characters to look at here. We've got Scarloey Rheneas, who is new, Victor and Kevin, and that's the Take and Play Kevin. Sir Handel and Peter Sam. There's Luke, Rusty and Duncan, Fearless Freddy, Bertram and Ivo Hugh, who are all new. There's Smudger on the Abbey Repair Shed, Madge, Duke, Millie and Mighty Mac, who is new, and hiding out of the back is Proteus on the little drying rack, whatever it is, behind the wash. And there's a workman there as well. So this is a cool little area. Well, I say little, it's actually quite big, quite spread out, but there's plenty of sidings for engines. Continuing on, at this switch where Ari is, coming this way joins us back to this switch which leads us up to Emily and Thomas's line at the station. So nothing more to say about that. Heading off straight leads us to another switch. Going left takes us across the crossing, and that leads us back to the back track. But the going straight leads us over the Archstone Bridge, which is another new item, and it's the 1994 version, so it doesn't have any rails on it. It doesn't have any markings, so it fits in nicely with the rest of my track. We lead to the conductor shed, and this also leads us to Emily's line. So it's a little bit awkward that there are two tracks that lead this way, but at least there are alternate ways you can go to get out of this loop. It's not just, you're not trapped in going to Thomas's line whatever way you take. Let's go back up here then to where Spencer is. Coming down from the T-switch comes to the 8-inch turntable, which is new, as well as the special engine sheds. They're also new. So out here in the sheds we've got Mike, Rex, Bert and Frank, and Rex and Frank's line leads under that Archstone Bridge. Jump over here. Leads us up onto the suspension bridge, around the corner to Stanley pulling some coaches. His line leads down through the other line of the tunnel, under this large bridge, turn a corner and you arrive back at Brendam docks. So again, we will get to that in a moment. Let's head back over here, back to Donald's line. If we take that switch, we come to Percy pulling some mail coaches. And I used to only have two, but I managed to find two more of these post office mail trucks, whatever they're called. So I'm really happy to have four of those. He goes through a tunnel, past the stop and go station, across the turntable, and then he goes up onto a bridge. We come to the Sawmill, which is another new destination. It did appear on my previous layout, only briefly because I managed to find a place to squeeze it in. But there's Wilbert, and he has, if I can get a shot of it, there's the Sawmill log car. And down below we have Terence. There's some logs down there. There's some more logs stacked up in a few trees. But Wilbert's line continues on. This bridge is made. This bridge was made just because I wanted to have a tall bridge that goes on the second level, and it's actually made using these supports. These are Thomas Wooden Railway supports, so they're all new. I got them for really cheap on eBay. We come up. There's Douglas pulling a long goods train across these bridges. That leads us over the line that we were on earlier, where Murdoch was. We come down, there's a little bit of a forest by the mountain tunnel, over this bridge. We come down again, going right from here, leads us into the Knapford junction. But coming around the back, we see Hugo, and we have a few different ways we can go. Right in front of us is a fire station. I can't remember the brand of this, but it is a Wooden Railway brand, and it came with that fire engine there. But here are the more familiar Sodor fire crew, all ready to go. So if we take Hugo's line, and also here's a custom T-switch I built just because I ran out of regular T-switches. Both of these lines lead under the tunnel, and then if I can get into it, we come around the corner. There is Daisy at a sort of country station, and Caroline. The upper line leads to where Den and Dart are with some oil tankers. Their line goes to Brendam Docks as well. Returning to Daisy's line, at the station, she goes under this bridge, under this blue bridge, and then she goes up and over the mountain tunnel, and then over the top of it we go under this bridge, we cross over 2 lines, and we get back to Tidmouth sheds. So let me quickly turn around right here. We get to this Y switch. Going right leads us under the last part of the Sky Bridge. There's Samson pulling some trucks relating to Elstead Castle. So the truck from the Toby's Castle delivery and the Dinos and Discoveries 2-pack. Going left, where he is, leads us under all these bridges and back to the docks. We will get there, I promise. Going right leads us on the track, leads behind the sheds, across here, and then it leads to Paxton's line, who's pulling the Waterworks cars, and his line, as we know, goes under the Knapford covered bridge and back to Knapford. If we come back to this switch, going left takes us across these 2 lines, which I really liked. I had these lines go through the tunnel, and I thought it'd be cool to have a slash go through them. So that's what we got there. There's Patrick, and over here we have George and Buster going over the crossing, and that leads us to another T-switch. Going right leads us under this Brio support where Charlie is, up onto the other line of the suspension bridge. There's Billy pulling some more coaches, and his line continues on around some corners and down to a switch that leads to where Percy is. But going left of the T-switch takes us up onto another bridge. This is the Brio collapsing bridge. It's a fun item, and I was adamant that I wanted to include it somewhere, and I finally managed to find a place to squeeze it in. This leads us over to the the arched viaduct, I believe is officially called. It's another item that I really wanted, and it's pretty cool. It's nice to have a curved bridge, and I'm not sure, you can have tracks lead under, as you can see I've done here, but I'm not sure the way I've set it up engines would actually fit through it. But we turn over here and we get to a long bridge where we have Hero pulling a long goods train. This is another new addition to a layout. This is a Brio kind of bridge expansion pack sort of thing, so it comes with what you see here and 2 ascending tracks. It makes a long bridge, in fact, and it's pretty cool. But when putting this layout together, I came across an interesting little issue with it. These little wooden poles, these supports on the edges of it, they are a little bit too low. Wooden railway engines get stuck trying to go through there. When I put Hero in the layout, I tried pushing him through and he came to a halt, and yeah, they're just a little bit too low. I think the reason why is because it was made during an era of Brio where they only had the really short trains. They weren't doing full-sized, you know, what we consider to be full-sized trains. But anyway, there's Hero again. He goes through the Knapford covered bridge, down and through the tunnel, and that leads us onto the upper line that we talked about earlier. And I guess we'll talk about this since we're here, if I can get to it. There's this little line that goes around the back. When I finished this layout, I had this awkward space with nothing in it, and I also had this piece left over. And I mentioned earlier that I had some other items from a company called Kitcraft, and that's what this is. It forms the lid of the box in which the set comes in, but you can also put it as part of the layout. We have Skiff up there at the moment, and right in front we have a Brio hotel. There's Kelly, Alfie, I believe Monty and Oliver, and it connects from there around across the bumpy track that leads back to the line by Knapford. So that's that. So since we're here, we'll return to this little custom T-switch by the fire station, because we never went this way. There's a level crossing there which serves as a purpose for these fire engines to get across the track, but its main reason that it's there is because I ran out of 4-inch straights. So it looks a little awkward, but you know, it had to be done. We'll go straight to this switch later, but if we go left, we go through the mountain tunnel and we arrive at Farmer McCall's farm. The mountain tunnel actually provides a really nice backdrop for a farm setting, so that's why I decided to put it here. We've got Farmer McCall. There's a sign that tells you it's the farm. There's a cow and a horse, some hay, a tree, and there's a lamb and a pig that are here. Toby and Henrietta are here, and they're talking to Trevor, who's got a cart of, I suppose, cut logs that he's going to take to the sawmill. And his line goes over the wacky track and leads into Brendam docks, which we will now finally talk about, since I think it's the second to last part of the layout to talk about. I mentioned at the beginning that I wanted to sort of throw out the rulebook with regards to how I design my layouts, but I kind of slipped back into my old ways in designing this because I made it look like how the docks looks from season 6 onwards. So we have the 3 lines where one is slightly lower. There is Salty with the aquarium cars and Dennis with some cargo cars. So a little reference to Salty Life, where Salty and Dennis become friends. There is Arthur pulling some vans, a little reference to Arthur Ryan and the Lost Pirate. And Arthur's line goes to a little switch that leads into a yard. We've got Porter, there's a forklift, and there's Isabella. We've also got a couple of cranes. There's Cranky with some cargo, and there is a crane as well from a company called Plative Junior, which also came with that ship. And there's a Brio ferry right there. Ignore the Lego buildings in the background, they're not part of the docks, but I didn't have anywhere else to put them. They were left over from my last layout. There's a little lorry there, and then there's a shed here. This is Salty and Porter's shed, which I wasn't planning on putting here, but again, same with the Knapford station. I had this 3-way switch left over and I needed the regular switch that I had there, but it works out quite nicely there. If we follow Arthur's line, well, all the lines lead back to this double crossover track, but Arthur's line leads us down back to Stephen's line. But before we get to Stephen, there's a couple of switches that lead us into a small yard. We've got Rosie picking up a car at this car transporter. Maybe Butch has just brought it in. There is Fergus with his coach. We go through a tunnel, and this leads us to a switch which leads us to the lower part of the sawmill. We've got Whiff and Scruff wait in there, just because there was literally nowhere else for them to go in this layout, and I needed some engines to go there. So they're having a day off from the waste dump today. There is the hospital and the ambulance, and their lines. This track goes through a crossing over the top of the sky bridge, and that leads us back to Tidmouth, across Hurricane's track, across the line where Thomas is, and that goes under the collapsing bridge and brings us out by the coal station. The only other part I think I haven't shown is over here, back at the works. There's this line which goes under the suspension bridge. There's Derek. This line comes under the bridge, and this brings us back to where we were at the beginning of the video, going to Sydney's line back to Knapford. But there's one part that I just skipped over, and it's this. This is a little diesel shed sort of area. So these are both new sheds. That is the Brio big engine shed and the double shed, and we've got a lot of diesels here. We've got Diesel 10, Bowler and Spam Can over here, and Diesel, Splatter and Dodge. And a quick note, this is called the Brio big engine shed, but it's not actually all that big. It's fairly short in height and in length, so these diesels just barely fit in there. Engines of, I remember when I first got it, I put Spencer in there and he doesn't fit at all. I mean, he does technically, but he sticks out over this transfer table, so it's no good. And when I first got these, because I got these both at the same time, I knew I wanted to have this little arrangement, and I'm glad I found the space to actually fit it. So those are the diesels. The only other part of the layout I don't think that I've shown is way back over here. Back at this switch by the mountain tunnel, going straight leads us past a little tractor, under Murdoch's line, over these 2 tracks at the back, and this leads us into the quarry. So let me try and get in a little bit. This is the very cluttered part of the layout, but here is the quarry. It would look a lot better if I used other buildings and such here, but I didn't want to put anything down like I mentioned before, but I wanted to have something different. It's been a good long while since I've had a quarry as part of my layout. I don't have any quarry dedicated pieces of one railway. So it looks a little barren, but we've got Bill and Ben over here taking a train of stone away. There's some switches going straight. There's a T-switch. There's Marion loading some rock into that truck. There's also Jack and Max. There is Timothy at the back with some hoppers. His line comes across down to Mavis in a small siding. Where Ben is, leads us across the turntable as well into some sheds. There's my third special engine shed, and there is Boko. And then this line comes to another K-switch, leads to a very short siding or down to these other sidings. We've got more trucks, and there's a final siding with the fog cars. So, and there's also Byron and Thumper as well. So I think that is about it. I don't know if I missed anything. We will make our way back to the corner of the layout, just to have one more final overview. And I think I just about covered everything. So as I mentioned before, this is a little bit larger of a layout than previous. When I first finished it, I wasn't too thrilled about it, but after putting all the engines and such out, it's really grown on me. I want to stress once again, I'm not going to be filming on this layout, but I have noticed a lot of areas where I would like to film. So it worked out quite nicely. So we'll return over here, and we will return to Thomas and Bertie at the station. So thank you all very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed looking at this layout. I had a lot of fun building it and talking about it again. So thank you all very much for watching. I hope you're looking forward to the next, to whatever comes next, and I will see you all very soon.